Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Naker Niblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. Welcome on in, everyone. We've got 4 games going on in the NHL tonight. We've got a Pierre Engvall goal, Tony DeAngelo assist again. Trevor's in here, says let's go. Lost Ones is in here. Hello to you. Matt is in here saying nice things. And Dynasty Dave, hashtag 0G. You know how we do. Love to see it. Drop your comments as we go along. I'll get to them in just a moment, but we're going to dive right into the list off the top. Starting off with Matt Boldy. Once again, I believe Matt Boldy was the #1 requested player last week as well. Boldy's got 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points in his last 5 games here, averaging just over 19 minutes a night in the last 5 games. That game against Dallas is about to start shortly here. It's a 3-game point streak for Boldy at this point. Nice little run. 218th in shots per 60, but 66th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60. 290 in Corsi 4 per 60. 316 in on-ice scoring chances 4 per 60. A little bit of a rough look on that front. Just looking back to see, no, they haven't played any truly terrible teams. So, yeah, it's not as great a look from Boldy as you might expect, but Minnesota has been struggling to figure out what to do with their lines. Anytime you lose Joel Eriksson and Kirill Kaprizov, it's going to be a bit of a smorgasbord after that, but it has been difficult for them to find some consistency. That being said, I do like the line of Rossi, Zuccarello, Boldy. It'll be interesting to see if they go with that again here on Monday night. Let's see what we can say about Boldy, though. I have Zuccarello here as well. We can mention his stat line: 2 goals, 3 points in his last 5, closer to 20 minutes average time on ice, 160 shots per 60, 194 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 in the 200s in the on ice numbers. I'm pretty convinced that you're going to want to just hang on to either of these players no matter where you've got them. Minnesota plays 4 games this week. There's a pretty good chance, because the heavy nights are not super heavy, that even though Minnesota only has 1 off night this week, which is tonight, though Monday, that even though they only have the 1 off night, you're probably getting all 4 games of your Minnesota players regardless. Like, even if you're thinking about benching Zuccarello, pretty good chance that you won't have to if you're playing the rest of your team right and streaming away in other spots. And then if you do get through this week, then you've got the week 24, where it's 4 games, 4 off nights, perfect schedule for Minnesota. With that in mind, it would take something pretty drastic for me to move away from. I mean, Boldy is a guy that you probably aren't thinking about moving away from, given the point production the last little bit. Underlying numbers, the on-ice stuff is not great, but still 66th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's obviously not bad. Zuccarello, line 1, power play 1, 20 minutes a night, even on Minnesota. And the way that they've been going, I'll still take that in a lot of places. So I don't think you're moving off of these players unless it's, even in like a 10-team league, it might be hard to, maybe like a deep 10-team league where you, you have a bunch of guys going the same nights on the heavy nights this week. There could be a reason to do that, but it would be tough, especially just given the eye ahead to week 24. I often say you got to win the week you're in. That is true, but if you're tie breaking between Zuccarello and somebody very similar, then I would tie break with regards to that week 24 schedule that's upcoming. Zach Werenski, next up. Blake and I talked about Werenski and basically everything in Columbus in the flagship show that came out today. So you can go back and check that out. Realistically, like the underlying numbers still look incredible for Werenski. I have not really changed anything about my view of him. Sean Monahan is coming back for this Monday night game. We'll see if that, boosts the offense in any way. But really, just an unlucky stretch after Columbus had probably been a little bit over lucky, and Werenski in particular had been a little bit over lucky over the last, pretty much the entire season to this point, I guess we're saying. So I think it's just kind of a bit of leveling out. That being said, I do still think Werenski is very capable of being a point per game defenseman for the rest of the season. And Ryan McLeod, suddenly 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points in his last five, 22 minutes a night. Had that 4 point game on the Sunday, probably in some deep leagues anyway. Won some people some matchups with that outburst. 227 shots per 60, 201 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 183 Corsi, 4 per 60, 176 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now, McLeod in this game, they moved him to a different line. He had been playing up with Tage Thompson, which was obviously a nice look. This game, they go with him on the JJ Paterka line along with Jack Quinn. And honestly, it worked pretty well. So they might go back with that. McLeod's on power play 2. He's not on the top power play unit. Top power play unit right now is kind of what we thought it should be. Zucker, Tuck, Thompson, Paterka, and Dahlin. That's nice to see that finally come into fruition. But McLeod is probably he's done this before actually, where he's had like a big week. He's had a nice season here, largely due to a 22% shooting percentage, 69% IPP, nice, 12.8% on ice shooting percentage. Probably just high marks for a guy of his caliber playing at his spot in the lineup. That being said, he's getting a ridiculous amount of minutes right now, and he might be able to brute force his way to some points this week. You could probably do worse than trying to stay in the Flames with McLeod for at least a few games here, but I would have a very short leash on that. Brock Besser has 5 goals and 6 points in his last 5 games. There's a game currently ongoing, and he did not figure into this first goal, which is the only goal so far. Pius Suter from Marcus Pettersson. 18 and a half minutes average time on ice, 203 shots per 60, 272 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. The on ice numbers are not better. It's really just a little bit of luck. It looks like the shots are not really there. He's got a 19% shooting percentage on the season. Realistically, 30 goal, 57 point pace for Besser. That's probably the player that he is. The question is, can he be that player even with the injuries that the Canucks are dealing with right now? You have Pettersson out of this game, and you have Höglander out of this game. Can Besser really do much without them? That's the real question here. It's kind of a moot point because with Vancouver's incredible schedule this week, you're almost guaranteed not thinking about moving off of him, especially given the fact that he's got 5 goals in the last 5 games. So I don't think there's much to say here, really. But I guess the only thing that we can say is looking ahead to next week, it's a 3 games, 2 off nights in week 24 for Vancouver. So that might be a situation where, yeah, you're probably riding it out this week with Besser in the vast majority of spots, unless it's a pretty shallow league and you can still stream well. But most other moves for streamer level players are going to feel pretty lateral this week, I think, even with Pettersson and Höglander out of the lineup and Besser having to carry the mail a little bit more. But come next week, Vancouver doesn't play again till Wednesday. Then they don't play again till the Saturday. It's going to be a lot harder to hang on to Besser at that point, especially if they continue to have injury problems there in Vancouver. Wyatt Johnston, goal and an assist for 2 points in his last 5. Gone a little bit quiet here, just over 18 and a half minutes average time on ice. 170 shots per 60, 153 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 301. Corsi, 4 per 60, 277 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Not exactly what you had hoped to see out of Wyatt Johnston in your playoffs. He is still on the top power play unit. Rantanen, Hintz, Robertson, Johnson, Harley is that unit at the moment. And that's obviously looks on paper like an incredible spot to be in this game against the Flyers here, the last game for the Stars. He played with Jamie Benn and Evgeny Dodonov at even strength, which is not the greatest spot, but Feels like he might be kind of the guy who gets kind of left out of the rotation with Rantanen joining Hintz and Robertson on the top line and Granlund, Marchment, Duchesne forming a natural pairing as the quote unquote third line, second line, whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah, it might be a spot where Johnson just kind of gets a little bit of the short end of the stick in terms of the 5v5 line mates, and that might be enough to hold him down a little bit. But the thing here with Dallas is they've got a great schedule this week, 4 games, 2 off nights, great schedule again next week, 4 games, 2 off nights. I just don't think you're going to find somebody out there to move off of Johnston for, even in a 10-team league with this kind of schedule, with power play one still. I think you're hanging on to Johnson even if this gets worse from here. Dylan Gunther has just 1 goal, 0 assists in his last 5 games here, averaging only a little over 15 minutes a night. That being said, he is 15th in shots per 60, 87th individual scoring chances for per 60, 209 Corsi for per 60, 225 in on ice scoring chances for per 60. He is being similar to Johnson in some respects. He is being left out on the second line here. Might not even be the second line. Realistically, in this last game, at least against Tampa Bay, it was the Cooley, Keller, Schmaltz line getting a ton of minutes, and then the other 3 lines were all getting very similar time on ice, all between 8:25 and 8:05 time on ice. The other 3 lines, so very similar ice time there. And Gunther's playing with Hayton and Carconi, which is, I mean, it's not the worst spot to be in, but it's definitely not nearly as good as earlier in the season when he was playing most of his 5v5 minutes with Logan Cooley and they were doing well together. So he is still on power play one, so that's obviously going to be a good spot for him. He should still do better than, this 1 point in 5 game space here, but it is probably a spot where he might have a little bit of a muted finish to the season. This week, Utah goes 4 games, 3 off nights. Definitely no chance you're moving away from Gunther this week. Next week, though, is 3 games, 0 off nights. And depending how this week goes, we could revisit the Gunther question next week. If he cools off and the underlying metrics cool off as well, we could revisit it. I don't think you're going to be moving off Gunther personally, even in that 3 games, 0 off night week. But crazier things have happened. Let's revisit it a week from now. All right, the comments have been popping off. I got to get back in here and show some love. Trevor, playoffs live in fantasy here. Need some more gold like always. We will try to do that. Matt, taking an early peek at Werenski's numbers on your sheet. Geez, the guy is absolutely snake bitten. Absolutely. Trevor saying all Columbus has been cold for sure. Steve says, our league's quarterfinals just started, got a first round bye, preemptively dropped Fantilli, and after some deliberation chose Rossi over Hartman. Did I choose wisely or no? I would choose Rossi over Hartman for myself personally. There might be, maybe in like a Bangers Cats or something, there could be an argument to take Hartman to try to get a little bit more of that edge. That being said, Hartman hasn't exactly been a big time hitter this year. So I don't think it's a bad idea to go with Rossi. Rossi's cold at the moment. Hartman's been relatively hot. Comparatively, I guess you could say. But I think that realistically, Rossi should be the guy who gets most of the top line minutes, most of the top power play minutes, whereas Hartman still feels a little bit more of a peripheral guy. Just got the first lines from the Wild Dallas game that just started, and yes, it is Rossi between Boldy and Zuccarello again. So that's a good look for him, whereas Hartman is playing with Hinostroza and Trennan. Obviously, not as great a look there. So, yeah, I think Rossi is the correct one. Nestle Swolehouse, what I do with my life now that my fantasy season is over? My advice, touch some grass, try to seek out the sun. That's what I like to do in the fantasy off season. Yeah, it does feel weird though when you, for myself anyway, I obviously dedicate a pretty solid chunk of time to this all throughout the fantasy season. And then when it's all immediately gone, it does feel a little bit weird to suddenly have all this free time on my hands. Dirty Deeds, what's the deal with Taylor Hall? We can throw Taylor Hall in the sheet here for a second for sure, if I can remember how to operate a computer. 5 goals, 7 points in his last 5, obviously coming off the hat trick here on Sunday. 15.5 minutes average time on ice, 56 shots per 60, 49th individual scoring chances for per 60, 12th Corsi for per 60, 13th in on ice scoring chances for per 60. Really good numbers under the hood for Taylor Hall over the last little bit here. In the last game, he was playing at even strength with Roslovic and Kakanyemi, but he was on the top power play unit with Aho, Jarvis, Jackson Blake, and Shingas to spare. This one is probably still a little dependent on Andrei Svechnikov. When Svechnikov comes back, pretty good chance that he can get back on a top power play unit over Hall or over Jackson Blake. So maybe one or two outs there for Hall to remain on top power play even when Svechnikov comes back. It's hard to really get excited about Taylor Hall, especially when he's playing with Roslovic and Kakanyemi at even strength here. Carolina goes 3 games, 2 off nights this week, and 3 games, 2 off nights next week. So there is some relative opportunity. It's not a bad schedule per se. You're probably getting some games out of Taylor Hall in any time that you're playing him in the next little bit here. Canes are Wednesday, Friday off nights. Next week, this week, Carolina is. Did I look at the same sheet twice? I think I looked at the same sheet twice. There we go. Reverse back to this week. Where's Carolina at? They go Tuesday, Friday, Sunday this week against some pretty lackluster opponents. They go Nashville, Montreal, and the New York Islanders this week. So definitely some teams that you might be able to score on if you're Taylor Hall. I think if you've got Taylor Hall, you're probably trying to keep him on the team for this week at least, but definitely not a guy that you suddenly think is locked into your lineup for the rest of the year just because he had this one hat trick. Jordan, hey Nate, looking for a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday back-to-back stream. How would you rank Johnson, Voronkov, Toffoli, and Eklund? Standard Yahoo Points League, no plus minus. I think I would take Toffoli tops there. I could double check just to make sure his metrics are not horrific. No, they're still good. Last little bit, over 18 minutes, average time on ice. I mean, maybe if Voronkov really goes off tonight with Monahan back in the lineup, you can make an argument to go that route. But I think Toffoli's the most likely candidate here. I think he's been very consistent for the Sharks. It's been exactly as advertised. I think he's been an underrated part of Celebrini and Will Smith's success this year so far. That being said, Eklund is the one on the line with Smith and Celebrini at the moment. Toffoli joining them on the power play. So yeah, you could also look at William Eklund just because of the 5v5 deployment ongoing right now and the fact that he's got 4 points his last 5 versus Toffoli only has 2. But the underlying numbers for Eklund on an individual basis are not as good as Toffoli. I'm still leaning Toffoli there personally. Armin's in here. Sup, boss? Good to see you. Justin, hey, sorry if this has already been asked, but is EP a drop with the news? I'm currently sitting in quarterfinals. I just know someone on a bye week is going to pick him up. If you can't place him in some sort of IR plus spot, then I think it's definitely on the table to drop him. Yeah, any chance they move him to the IR? There is a chance. There's always a chance. It depends if he's going to be out longer or not. I would try to wait. I mean, at this point, you've gone through this game here tonight, so you get into Tuesday here and you see if there's any updated news tomorrow at this point, having already gotten through tonight. So yeah, get the most information possible. I think that it's not unreasonable to drop him, but yeah, pretty good chance that he does get picked up for the back end of the week if you do drop him. And you're just going to have to live with that. If that's what you have to do to ensure yourself of some games played this week, then you should absolutely do that. It does depend to me, like, what's the quality level of player that you're picking up? Can you get 3 games out of the player you're picking up, or 4 games even if you drop them in time tomorrow and you have open spots here on the Tuesday? Yeah, all those questions do matter to me when making this decision, but I would not shame anyone for making a decisive move like that to put themselves in the best place to win this week. Michael says, Morgan Riley worth leaving on my roster this week. Toronto has 4 games. My other D-men are Wensky, Dobson, Sergachev, and Quinn. Thinking I might swap him out since he's been terrible lately. Yeah, I mean, without knowing who you could swap out for, I do think that it's reasonable to move away from him. He has been pretty terrible for most of the season now, and it seemed like there's a little bit of a resurgence, but it's dropped back off in the last little bit, and I'm fine to move on. Armin asks, drop Samoskevich or Bolduc for Matt Roy, Pia Suter, Voronkov, or D'Angelo. So definitely not Voronkov now that you've already missed the Monday here. D'Angelo, you've missed this Monday, so it'd be a later week stream there, but you probably get 3 games. Suter, you would get the back end of the week. 3 games of Suter versus 2 games of Samoskevich is a real question. I'm going to assume that Bolduc is actually making your lineup in all of St. Louis's games, based on the way that you're asking this question. I don't really know that any of these guys are major upgrades in that regard. So, yeah, probably not, given what you're showing me here. Michael asks, is Carter Verhaeghe worth the drop? Florida has 2 games this week. Been terrible lately, but Florida has 4 games next week. Yeah, so I think that it is a I think that's a reasonable drop if you can get, 4 games of a pretty strong player, or even potentially get, a couple games of a player and then try to add Verhaeghe back for Friday. Yeah, Florida has a great schedule rather next week, but you have to get through this week to get there. Yeah, I said it on the last show, but I would be okay with dropping Carter Verhaeghe. He's playing very well under the hood. It's not an issue with how he's playing in my eyes. It's really just a schedule play. If you can do something better with that roster spot, at least until Friday, then I'd absolutely think about dropping him. Chichi Mini, who do we think will benefit the most with the Velarde injury? I did see some lines. Let me pull those up for a minute. It was I follow who went to the top line with Connor and Shifley. I don't think we got power play. Oh yeah, we did get power play units. It was Iafallo that took that spot on the top power play. So Iafallo is the one who's getting the deployment. I still don't really like Iafallo. It seems like he rarely does anything, even when he gets these looks. But yeah, they did some weird stuff here. Like they broke up Ehlers and Perfetti. They're splitting them across lines now as well. So there's not like a really clear winner other than Iafallo's getting deployment now. If it was, I would honestly be more excited about Mason Appleton if he was getting that look. Obviously, Cole Perfetti, if he was getting that look, I could get excited about. But it does seem that Iafallo's getting it. I mean, yeah, you could look at Iafallo in a deeper league, but I refuse to get excited about it. Last ones, I'm streaming Palmieri for the first 2 games this week and then swapping out for a 3-gamer like Byfield. Is Kyle worth a full week hold, though? I think that's a reasonable approach, especially if you can get an extra game played. I would say Byfield and Palmieri are probably uh, somewhat similar level streams for this week. Byfield probably a little bit higher in my estimation, but Palmieri is getting a ridiculous amount of deployment right now and has good stats under the hood, so I like him as well. So yeah, if there's other things you can do with that ad, then I wouldn't feel like you have to drop Palmieri. But yeah, you could also make that move, get an extra game played with Byfield, and I think that would be fine as well. Steezy, Nate, I gotta see Zach Bolduc's profile if you can, please. Line 1, power play 1, just not getting the minutes. Thanks. Zach Bolduc. Actually, I think it's Zachary, isn't it? Oh, I'm just butchering this name. Zach. Oh, no, there it is. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, 14 minutes, though. 116 shots per 60, 85th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 161 Corsi, 4 per 60, 87 scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah, it's good line mates that he's with, playing with Thomas and Neighbors at even strength. And realistically, I don't think it's power play 1 because I think realistically I mean, in this last game, it was the Kairu power play that got the most time, but it's really just a 1A, 1B situation, close to a 50-50 power play split as you get around the league. So I don't really think it is true power play 1. Bolduc's fine in a deeper league. The 14 minutes is what's going to hold you down. I don't know if he got a little bit more in the last game. I could double check that one there. Zach Bolduc got, no, it was 13:05 in the last game as well. Yeah, I can't really get excited about it. But it is a good spot for him nonetheless. So yeah, in a deeper league, it's probably worth a shot. In a normal 12-teamer, it's probably not. St. Louis has a pretty nondescript schedule. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this week. Nothing to write home about. So it's not really a schedule play. There's a good chance that there's somebody else out there that's going to do something better for your lineup. E. God, the Blue Jackets are awful. Get this game off my screen. What do we got here? I haven't checked the score in a little bit. Islanders have 2 goals at the end of the first year. Palmieri has a goal. There you have it from Bo Horvat. And the Engvall goal that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's been rough for sure. I don't know. Obviously, I didn't see the goals, so it's hard for me to say exactly what I'd see there. I'm trying to see who was on the ice for these goals. Monahan was on for one of them. Fantilli's line was on for one of them, it looks like. Tough look, no doubt. But yeah, it can be one of these situations, right? Like the Blue Jackets are not a team that's used to success. Dean Evison as a coach is, but the Blue Jackets, the team, definitely are not. And so it's it's a rough spot when things start to fall apart and you start to maybe disbelieve in yourself a little bit. You don't have that resiliency that you've learned over years of being a competitive and playoff worthy team. I do think there is something to that. So that is a tough look at the moment. I do think they will bounce back. Whether or not that happens sooner rather than later is up for debate. Mr. C agreed 100%. Re to Foley. Good call, Nate. Huh, thank you for that. Jordan, how does Zegras look under the hood? We can take a look at Mr. Trevor Zegras. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in his last 5, 18 minutes a night, 300 shots for 60, not great there. 191 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 is not bad. 98th Corsi, 4 per 60, 39th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Got better and better as we read across there. I don't mind Zegras has a stream for this week. You get the 3 off nights at the end of the week. He's on the top power play. They are running a true top power play with Zegras, Terry, McTavish, Carlson, Lacombe. At even strength, Zegras is playing with McTavish as well, who's been playing well himself. So I don't mind the Zegras stream for this week. It is a bit, I guess, hit or miss, right? It's a bit of a Russian roulette situation going for a Trevor Zegras stream. E. Points League, who to pick up and hold rest of the week. Taylor Hall for 3 games, Byram for 4 games, Kuzmenko for 4 games, or Grieg for 4 games. In that situation, I guess I can throw Kuzmenko in here, and I can throw Ridley Grieg in here as well, just to get a quick look at it. My intuition is Hall. And yeah, I think I would go that route. I just don't have a lot of confidence in Grieg's continued deployment. In the last game, he was playing with Giroux and Pinto. I didn't see any other lines, so I think that's the latest that we have. Oh no, there are new lines. Pinto. Oh yeah, same lines though. So yeah, Pinto and Giroux at even strength. It's not a bad place to be, but obviously he's going to be on the second power play unit there. He's not going to be on the first. 18 and a half minutes time on ice is kind of nice, but I think I'd take Taylor Hall's minutes. And like I said, Carolina doesn't have exactly a murderer's row of opponents this week, so might be a good spot for Taylor Hall for a few more days. Justin, to follow up on my question, I'm debating on replacing Elias Pettersson, sorry, with Peterka or Huberto. Yeah, like realistically, rest of season, I don't see Pettersson as that different from Huberto or Peterka. So in that case, I don't feel that bad about making the move, especially if he can get the same amount of games played for the rest of the week. Still might wait to get that news tomorrow on Tuesday to see if he might be back, and maybe you decide to just save that ad if he's going to be back on Wednesday. But if it's looking like he's not, then yeah, you might want to go ahead and make that move. If you can get, yeah, it depends obviously how much of Buffalo's games you can get in for this week as well. If you can get all 4 games this week, then that'd be a no-brainer for me. Get Peterka in for all 4 games, and that would make a lot of sense. Michael, thinking about dropping Riley for Ben, Granlund, or Marchment, worth grabbing a Dallas player this week? Well, you've already missed the first game of the week here, which is probably one of the biggest reasons to grab one of them. If you are going to go ahead and do it, I think I would go Granlund and then Marchment and then Ben would be the order I would go. Last ones, I could keep Palmieri and drop Vetrano after the Wednesday off night. That could be one look as well. This is going back to the Palmieri versus Byfield, right? Yeah, that's also a valid option. Vetrano's been very cold as of late. I don't think his underlying metrics have ticked up much in the last little bit either. 71st shots per 60, but just over 60 minutes average time on ice. That's gone down a bit. It's not a great look for Vetrano. Yeah, it is not a spot where I'm like excited about what we're getting out of Vetrano right now, and he's not on that top power play anymore. I think that that might be a look if you're getting the same amount of games. Um, if you're getting, yeah, if you get the one game from Vetrano and then still get 3 games of Byfield after that, I think that might be the look. Appreciate the deep dive on Bolduc. Thank you, sir. No problem. Michael, do we have the conversation that McKinnon should be the number 1 pick over McDavid in fantasy for next year? Probably depends on your league settings. If you have big weights for shots, then it's definitely much more of a conversation. But yeah, I think it's a 1A, 1B situation at this point. I mean, in Cacuffle Tier 1, McKinnon went for more dollars, more auction budget than McDavid did this year already. So it's definitely among high-end fantasy players, it's already been a conversation this year. Stonks, hey Nate, should I go with the legend Tony Altright, D'Angelo, or Simon Whoville Holmstrom? That's a good question and an amusing proposition at that. So in this game, Holmstrom is still playing with Palmieri and Horvat, which is obviously a pretty good look. I don't mind that. Yeah, I think I would go Holmstrom in that case. It is very close for me. I don't feel too strongly about it in either direction, but I think I might go Holmstrom in that look. Ricky, could you look at Will Cooley's stats? Wondering if I should swap him for Jared McCann or Lafreniere. We can absolutely look at Will Cooley versus Jared McCann. And oop, that's not how you spell McCann. There we go. And Alexis Lafreniere, because he has the accent in his name, I have to always do this. I have to Google it and copy it and then paste it, and there we go. All right, we've got it. Will Cooley, 16 minutes. Jared McCann, 16 and a half. Lafreniere, 15 and a half. Cooley's got 3 points in the last 5. McCann has 3 points in the last 5. Lafreniere has 4. In the last game, the Rangers went with, oh yeah, they messed up the lines a little bit here. I'm not sure which one they ended up on. Lafreniere did get a look on that Panarin-Trocheck line, but he also spent a bunch of time with Miller and Brodzinski. Obviously not on the power play. Cooley was playing with Kreider and Zibanejad for most of the night. Underlying numbers, lean McCann here, just with the shots. The underlying numbers are not good for any of these players, but leaning McCann. If it's a Bangers Cats, then Will Cooley obviously throws hits with the best of them, and so that would be a reason to go Will Cooley. But in a more standard points setup, I think I would hold on to McCann in that scenario between Cooley and Lafreniere. I don't think there's enough here to say that Cooley is definitively better than Lafreniere, and so I just hold Lafreniere if that's who you've got already. Michael Rowland, how do you feel about the Leafs' chances in the playoffs this year? I feel the same way about the Leafs this year as I feel about the Leafs every year. I feel like they are almost positive, almost assuredly, I should say, going to disappoint me. All right, let's get back into the list. Keep the comments coming if you want me to look at a specific player or answer a specific question. Mackie Simiskevich, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last 5, over 18 and a half minutes average time on ice, 150th shots per 60, 152 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 10th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 67th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Simiskevich still on the top power play unit, playing with Sam Bennett and Jesper Boqvist at even strength in the last game. It's still a good spot for Samiskevich. If you can get a bunch of games played for moving away from Samiskevich, like if you can get 4 games of, I'm trying to think, if you can get 4 games of Jason Zucker instead of 2 games of Mackie Samiskevich, I think I would go with the 4 games of Zucker there, just as an example. I think that is a move worth making, so I don't think you have to hang on to Samiskevich by any stretch of the imagination. That being said, he's still in a great spot, and if he gets dropped, dropped in some places, then I would be looking at adding him, especially because Florida's schedule does get much better when you go into the following week. In the following week, they play 4 games, 2 off nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, Sunday back to back. So kind of a interesting schedule for Florida next week. And so that's another reason to be pretty interested in picking up Florida players if they get dropped for the Friday, Sunday end of the week into the following week. Steven Stamkos, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in his last 5, 18 minutes average time on ice, 129 shots per 60, 298 individual scoring chances for per 60, 60th in Corsi for per 60, and 142nd in on ice scoring chances for per 60. The Nashville Predators did mess up their lines a fair bit in the last game. Stamkos played with Marchessault in both iterations of that line, one with Cole Smith, one with Michael Bunting. Neither is super compelling, but obviously still in the top power play there as well. So he is going to get some pretty good deployment in any way. Yeah, this week it's not a good week for Nashville schedule-wise, 3 games, 0 off nights, but next week it's 4 games, 2 off nights. So if you get through this week, then it probably looks better again for you. I've got Stamkos in one spot, and I just frankly have bigger fish to fry, so I'm keeping Stamkos all week long. It's still like a guy who's getting 18 plus minutes playing power play 1, and we know that Stamkos could get hot here, and he could pop off on the power play. Even if it was only on the power play, he could just like net 3 power play goals in a week. That's very possible for him, even though it seems more and more unlikely as this season has progressed. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I wouldn't fault anyone for moving off of him, especially if they need to get more off nights. If they're full on some of the heavy nights and they're looking at benching Stamkos already, definitely not a player that you have to hang on to. Quinton Byfield, 3 goals, 5 points in his last 5, just over 18 minutes, average time on ice, 200 shots per 60, but 11th in individual scoring chances for per 60. Had another nice goal against Jeremy Swayman that was one of the goals that ultimately sunk me in the Patron League. I'm still a little bit bitter. I will get over it. Just ask me in a couple months. 208th in Corsi for per 60 and 76th in on ice scoring chances for per 60 for Byfield. Yeah, he's playing really well, generating scoring chances at a pretty good rate. He doesn't shoot, but he generates chances somehow. I don't really know how that works, but that's what he's doing. Yeah, I think that Byfield is a pretty solid streamer, maybe a little bit above that level now where you're thinking he can sustain like a 65, 70 point pace for the rest of the season given the deployment right now. And LA plays 4 games this week, so you're probably hanging on here. Next week, they go 3 games, 0 off nights, so that's going to be much more of a conversation with Byfield. But at the moment, I think you're hanging on to him and enjoying what he's given you. Boone Jenner, 1 goal in his last 5 games, 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 39th in shots per 60, 32nd individual scoring chances for per 60, 48th Corsi for per 60, 205th in on ice scoring chances for per 60. They haven't had a power play yet, it doesn't look like, but it sounded like from the practice lines that Boone Jenner was going to be on the top power play, along with Fantilli on the second line. Overall, those should be boosts for Jenner, so I am actually relatively interested in Jenner going into the rest of the season. Problem is that they're playing in this game here on Monday, and then they don't play again until Friday. So that makes it a little bit tough to work in a Boone Jenner stream on the week. Realistically, you could look at a Friday, Saturday back to back, try to get him in there if you have some open space on the Saturday. Next week, Columbus does play 4 games. 4 games, only 1 off night on the Sunday. So it's not the greatest spot, but it is a decent schedule in terms of just sheer volume for Boone Jenner once we hit Friday of this week. So, yeah, I like Jenner. I like the spot that he's in now. I think that Columbus should turn this thing around, and I think Jenner can be a part of that. Case closed. Tage Thompson, just 2 assists, no goals in his last 5 games here. 21 minutes average time on ice, 29th in shots per 60, 10th in individual Corsi for per 60, 124 Corsi on ice Corsi for per 60, and 132 in on ice scoring chances for per 60. Yeah, Tage is still kind of being Tage. I don't really see major differences in his underlying numbers here. Actually, getting some pretty big minutes, which might be a sign that he's actually feeling a little bit better. Earlier in the season, they were moving him away from center, having other people take faceoffs and stuff like that because of some underlying issues dealing with. Maybe that's a little bit behind him now, and they're kind of leaning on him to close out the season because he's one of the few players still going there in Buffalo. It's a good schedule for Buffalo the rest of the way here. 4 games, one off night this week. So it's a good look this week with Tage. Yeah, the goals aren't coming, but there's no chance in my mind that you're finding something better than Tage Thompson on any waiver wire, even if in like an 8-team league. No, you're hanging on to Tage Thompson. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 4 goals, 9 points in his last 5 games, just over 18.5 average time on ice. 63rd shots per 60, 59th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 103 Corsi 4 per 60, 129 in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Blake and I talked about RNH on the flagship pod, so go back and check that out. We've gotten word as of today that Draisaitl and McDavid will not play any of the games this week for Edmonton, and so RNH is going to have to be that guy all week. I don't honestly know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because it seemed like he really took it upon himself to go to a new level when Draisaitl and McDavid went down. Obviously, he had the hat trick in 23 minutes against Seattle. He has 4 shots, 3 shots, 5 shots in the last 3 games, just doing stuff in the last little bit. So maybe it is a good thing for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to have these guys out of the lineup. And I mean, at the moment, with how hot he's been, you're just going to enjoy what he's given you. Elias Pettersson and Gabriel Velarde, 2 injury notes here. So Pettersson, I haven't really seen any true updates. Maybe I missed something. Somebody can drop something in the comments if I've missed something. And we've already got a better update on Elias Pettersson, but it sounds like just kind of your standard day to day. I'm not sure what's going on. Now I'm actually seeing a tweet. It sounds like they might not be going on the road trip, him and Hoglander. Is that right? I hadn't seen that one before. I do most of my prep for this earlier in the day, and then I don't get back down here until right after I put kids to bed. So sometimes I miss some of these tweets. Yeah, it sounds like he was sent back to Vancouver, and so he's probably out for the whole week. Yeah, in that case, stash him on IR Plus, obviously, if you can. Pretty good chance he even gets moved to IR then if it's going to be this whole week. That would be a pretty solid reason to actually move him to IR and free up some space. There could be a good situation. Not a good situation, but a situation for our previous commenter who had to have who was using just a roster spot, not an IR spot for Pettersson. So hopefully he does get moved to the IR sooner rather than later. It'd be kind of curious that they wouldn't get that done today with the game being played here tonight, but maybe they had a plan in place already for the day. Just speculating, but interesting regardless. In any event, like I'm not super excited about Elias Pettersson the rest of the season. Just dealing with another injury here. Not going to play for a bit. We don't know for how long at this point. It's tough to get excited. If you have to drop Elias Pettersson, I would not feel very badly about doing that at all. If he's not getting the IR designation that you need, I would just go ahead and drop him at this point. Get through this week. You got to win this week to get to the next one. Velarde was labeled week to week. This was particularly annoying for me. I have Velarde in Tier 1 Cupful, and I had the bye last week, but we didn't get this news till today, so I had to use an ad to make my Velarde move. Also got Jacob Chikrin news today, which was brand new, so super fun stuff for me, but enough griping about my situation. Velarde wasn't playing very well the last little bit anyway, and I do wonder if this upper body injury was something that he was maybe dealing with a little bit before that. Just speculation, but it would make sense based on some of the underlying numbers that we're seeing here. Either way, Velarde not going to play for the next little bit. Realistically, I think you're only excited, you're not excited, but you're only even thinking about potentially getting him back if you play all the way to the end of the season into week 25. Barrett Hayton, just 1 assist now in his last 5 games, just over 16 minutes average time on ice. All the metrics have completely fallen off the map here. 350 as shots per 60, 341 individual scoring chances for per 60, 278 Corsi 4 per 60, 259 in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, just really terrible all of a sudden since losing the top power play. Now all of a sudden Barrett Hayton can't play hockey at even strength either. I don't really know what the correlation there is, but it's definitely appears to be a real one. So you can move off Barrett Hayton. It's a good schedule this week, right, for Utah, which is the tough part. You don't really want to move away from a Utah player when they're giving you the schedule. They go here tonight on Monday, then they go Thursday, Friday, Sunday this week. So 3 off nights, 4 games played. It's tough to waste an ad to remove a player who's already given you 4 games played in a week and good off nights at that. So that part is tough, but if he's going to continue to do this, this is truly atrocious. Yeah, if he's being benched on some of these nights, or if it's a spot where you just don't know who to drop, I don't think Hayton is a really great candidate to have a pop off week, and so I wouldn't feel too bad about moving on from Hayton if that's what makes the most sense for your lineup this week. Leo Carlson, 2 goals, 3 points in his last 5, 16 and a half minutes average time on ice, 317 shots per 60, 342 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 126 in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 54 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, I should say. Carlson has been a bit of an enigma this season for me. I thought he might take another step this year, but that hasn't really happened. On the season, he's played 63 games, and his point pace is just 43 points, 21 goal, 43 point pace on the season. Has still basically refused to shoot the puck, playing with Cutter Gauthier and Alex Killorn in the last game. Is on the top power play at the moment, which is obviously a good spot for him. But yeah, it just might take another year with Carlson, or another 2, maybe. It's hard to remember sometimes how young some of these players are. Leo Carlson came straight from the draft, straight into the NHL, and that's always a tough thing. Sometimes these bigger players take a little longer to develop as well. He just turned 20 a couple months ago here. It's still a very young player, playing in a tough environment in Anaheim for Greg Cronin, entering the hellscape as his first taste of the NHL. Tough spot for a young player to really show his mettle. So I think that you can probably still do worse than Carlson as an end of week stream for the 3 off nights that Anaheim has this week, but it's not a player that I'm excited about for the week, especially with the potential that he could get moved off the top power play at some point as well. All right, that is the list. I'll get back into the comments and we can close it out from there. Michael, do you think Yossi comes back next week, or is he done for the season? Everything I'm seeing from the team suggests to me that he's done for the season. There's nothing official, but that's what I'm seeing. Benji, Veg over Saros rest of playoffs. Category League, Nashville is brutal. Yeah, I would go Vimelka over Saros rest of season for sure. Agent Orange just won my chip, $340. Thanks to you and Blake for all the great info. You guys don't know how much fantasy managers appreciate what you guys do. Cheers. I appreciate that. Love to hear a success story. Yeah, join the Discord and drop your success stories if you got them. And as they happen for you, we love to hear it. Love being a little piece of everybody's fantasy success this year, and love hearing that we helped in some way. Dirty Deeds, Blackwood, Vinnington, Demko, Vimelka. Which 2 would you keep for this week? Okay, let's dig in. So starting with Blackwood, Colorado, 3 games against Detroit, LA, and St. Louis this week. Bennington has 3 games against Montreal, Nashville, and Colorado. Demko is playing tonight, so I don't know if you've already got him in. Vimelka's playing as well. So yeah, maybe you could keep that going. You just get the 2 starts here tonight and then move on to the other 2 guys. That might work as well. Vimelka playing tonight and then has Tampa, Florida, Chicago to end the week. We'll probably get 2 of those starts, one of the Florida teams and then Chicago most likely. Demko, anybody's guess really what he gets after this game here tonight. Probably gets one of Columbus or Winnipeg on the back end of the week. Feels pretty unlikely that he gets 3 starts this week though. Okay. Nothing's really screaming out to me that I you gotta have it this week. I think I would keep Vimelka and Blackwood myself, but I could be convinced on Bennington over Vimelka. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Michael, would you drop Kachekov for Saros? No, I don't think I would. Lost ones, of course. Fantilli scores. LOL. Now I want to hold him. Did he score? I've been checking the scoring here. Fantilli from Fabro and Merzlikins. All right. Merzlikins getting in on it. Love to see that. I kind of need Merzlikins in one spot, so I'm hoping that Columbus can come back in this thing. Trevor, roll the dice on a Mrazek start tonight. Worthy gamble or bail ASAP? You made the ad, so you may as well let it ride. It is a risky one for sure, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if you get Mrazek now, like there's a pretty good chance that he will get at least 2 starts. I feel very confident about that, and a decent chance that he even gets 3. So yeah, at this point, you're pot committed. You got to ride it out. Jordan, how's your team doing in the Creators League? So I won my first round matchup. I'm into the second round here. I'm playing the top seed team that had the bye. I lost my last 2 weeks in horrific fashion. I had the most points for in the Creators League again this year, but yeah, I ended up in 4th place. Yeah, combination of bad luck and stupid mistakes, I guess, throughout the season to end up with, what did I end up with? Like a 12-9 record, I want to say. Where's the standings? 12-9 record on the season. So yeah, it was a tight league in that regard. So ended up finishing in 4th. Won my first week matchup pretty handily, but yeah, now I'm up against the first place team, really strong team there, and they have obviously had the opportunity of the bye to get set up for me this week. So I'll be in tough this week for sure, but hopefully we can defend last year's title in that league. Michael, hey Nate, probably cutting bait on Fantilli tomorrow. Vetrano, Terry, DeBrusque, Giroux, Toffoli out there. Also Marchenko, Huberto, Stamkos on waivers, but only clear on Wednesday. Cats are goals, assists, shots on goal, hits, and power play points. Okay. I mean, I like Toffoli and Terry the most here. Terry's been shooting the lights out the last little bit. I want to throw him in here for a second. Yeah, 10th in shots per 60 over the last 5 games. 19 and a half minutes average time on ice. That's nice to see. So that plays in your format, getting on true top power play time as well. So decent chance for power play points, which is what you got there. Obviously, he's not going to hit anybody, so there's that. Yeah, it's between Terry and Toffoli. If you're getting all 3 games of Toffoli, would I still go Terry? I think I would go Terry. He's hot at the moment, getting big minutes, top power play. I think I would still go Terry at the moment. Michael asked how I was doing in the Creators League as well. What players did you in last week? So the one player that really did me in was in the Patron League, where my auto picked Jeremy Swayman. I only needed him to have, I think it was 17 saves, and he ended up with 16. And that was the difference in my matchup. Yeah, just brutal. I don't know how I could have possibly anticipated that run out, but that's what happened. So that's the end of my season. I finished 3rd in the regular season in the Patron League, but bowing out early in that one due to my auto pick of Jeremy Swayman coming back to bite me one final time in the playoffs. It's poetic, really. So yeah. I can laugh about it now, but Blake can attest. Last night I was not a happy camper. Matt, apologies if this was already asked, but is there a Nate/Blake playoff matchup happening in any leagues? We are playing each other in the consolation of the experts. We both lost in the experts league. So we're playing each other in the 5th place, like consolation game there. So I don't know if that really qualifies. It's not for any of the marbles. I guess like there is. We still have the draft position for next year because this is a keeper league. Draft position for next year, you can get 1 spot better if you win this week. So there is that on the line still, I guess, but definitely no money on the line and none of that still in play. So I don't think either of us are too psyched up about this one. Matt, Timo goal, that's good for me. I like that, especially in Cacuffle. I've got Timo Meyer there. It'd be really nice to just have a nice solid closeout from Timo to finish strong for me in Cacuffle, particularly where I spent some money on him. So that would be nice. Michael says cheers. Jordan says thanks for all your help, Nate. No problem. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Looks like we got to the last comment here. Michael says, can you do Mika? Is he worth holding? Ranger playoff schedule, not so great. Yeah, I talked about Mika Zibanejad with Blake on the flagship show yesterday. Just one assist in his last 20 minutes a night, but the underlying metrics are pretty bad. I'm fully aboard dropping Mika Zibanejad. If you're in a spot where you have to drop somebody or you want to drop somebody for Tuesday tomorrow because you're going to be benching someone anyway, I think Mika can be that player, and I wouldn't feel too bad about it. The Rangers' playoff schedule is about as bad as it gets from here on out. 3 games, 1 off night this week, 2 games, 1 off night next week. If you make it to week 25, then they do have 6 games and 4 off nights then, but you got to make it there. So, yeah, I'm fully aboard with a Mika drop. All right. I think we've made it to the end of the list. I think that's going to be all that I've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value. Helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.